Hi everybody, and finally, welcome back to Gramercy. It's been a really long time, and I'm sorry to do that to you again. I'm gonna hope I won't do that in the future anymore, but of course, every single video of mine lately has started like this. Anyway, I've moved back to New York for a little while. I'm actually recording this at work, because I've brought my computer, but need to use it as my work computer. Anyway, I'm doing some cool stuff, really excited. Hopefully I'll be able to tell you about that sometime in the future, but anyway. For right now, we are continuing where the last episode left off and working on a new neighborhood, actually a pair of new neighborhoods, which you guys hopefully have read the title and know they are Halsey and Roebling. I'm really excited about these. They're kind of based on Williamsburg, Bushwick, kind of that area in Brooklyn. Right now, I'm capping the end of the Navy Yard off with a sort of kind of small little breakwater type thing. I spent a lot of time looking at the actual Brooklyn and Queens waterfronts here, trying to figure out what they were like, I guess. I mean, I've been there, of course, but they keep changing, and like if there's anything I've missed that might be interesting, I thought putting this little point out in the front makes a lot of sense near the Navy Yards as well, so just kind of went for that. Now I'm looking at starting out, and even though this is a nice waterfront area, and even though Williamsburg and this sort of that sort of area is really famous for kind of real hip living and being very, very expensive now, at least, there are definitely still a lot of factories and industrial buildings and buildings that have started industrial and have been converted. This one, actually, I believe is mostly just straight industrial. Oop, I'm going around trying to find the right angled shaped building back to the other part of the city, hoping that it would fit inside this block, but I think it's angled, like handed the wrong way. I end up going like this, which lines up pretty well, actually, just with the cutout being on the opposite side. But this is actually based off a real building. I can't remember what it is, but I was looking at Google Maps. I remember doing that at the time. I've been recording these over the past couple months. Ever since I got home, and ever since I finished the last episode, got home being moved back to California. I'd been trying to get new episodes out, trying to get more stuff, but it just kind of kept ballooning. I'm like, oh god, I can't release it now. It's got to be bigger. It's got to be even bigger. So I'm trying to rack my brain. Usually I'd record everything in one day or just over a weekend. But right here I'm doing a parking lot. Figured these older European signs would look nice. And they really do. There's something about the European assets in this game that look a lot nicer than some of the other style. But this parking lot kind of gets itself taken care of pretty quickly. I'm actually going, and while it's not the right shape, I'm literally sitting around with Google Maps open on my other monitor and going truck for truck, container for container, just quickly trying to get as close of inspiration as I sort of can, get it to look right. Because I'm definitely, you'll see it in this episode a lot, I'm feeling rusty. I'm feeling not quite as inspired as I used to be, and not quite as able to develop new techniques, I guess. So I always like trying to do new stuff. But this last I'm just I guess just throw a pile of decals everywhere and it'll look great. So you're gonna see that. I'm not 100% happy with the way this all turned out, but it's getting there. So I'm looking around, and this parking lot, it turns out there are a lot of parking lots this episode, but I'm going, adding the stains in, quickly checking the landscape, I guess, seeing how it fits, jumping over now, and of course, just to speed things up, I'm just grabbing a handful of cars. Here, looking for, that's right. So I've noticed that a lot of my city looks really homogeneous, so I've grabbed some, I think these are Lost Gecko apartments, but I'm trying to add some newer structures. Now, of course, we are back over in Roebling. I think I cut recording, so I'm like, you know what, let's keep this focused. Anyway, I'm looking around, playing around with some new assets, trying to figure out what the heck should go in this real long block. Seeing kind of it's a really weird sort of scale. I don't actually think I end up doing much in here. I think I kind of punt and give up on it for the next time. Just because it's in real life, it's not really, this area doesn't quite exist. This is going to be a small kind of container yard, and that just doesn't really make sense to have next to a residential neighborhood or a neighborhood like this. So I kind of go and just put some warehouses in. Actually, it turns out, yeah, I don't leave it all blank. But I'm putting some warehouses in. It's a little more industrial, straight up than I would have liked. But I think there is enough I think it's close enough to the Navy Yards to look about right. And there's hopefully enough of its kind of God, I'm like, you can see I'm rusty on the commentary as well. Enough of it's kind of like warehousey, industrial enough to fit in. So it's like former factories, former like now temporary warehouses right by the highway. So I figure like trucks would be able to get in and out. So it's I don't like hate it, but it still feels a little weird for these like distribution centers and things. But I mean, it's right by what's going to be kind of the secondary container yard, and that is a real thing. It's down in Red Hook in Brooklyn. Of course, the primary ones for all of New York are over in New Jersey, actually. So now I'm going through and just doing the classic sort of decal detailing, looking around. I'm like, can't remember what anything's called anymore, so I've got to scroll through menus constantly. Luckily, these ones are, I think, beard monkey. Yeah, they're definitely beard monkeys. That orange at the bottom there. But I go through and they fit real perfectly in between the actual loading zones. So some nice lines in there I think end up looking really good. So yeah, there you go. I just search beard monkey now. That's how you know you get some of that quality stuff. But anyway, so I'm going through just adding lines to kind of delineate the parking. If anybody actually knows the difference between yellow and white, I'd be very interested. I stick some loading only just to kind of make it clear, I guess. And then it's my best friend lately, especially this episode, the stains decal. And now, yeah, I do. So I add a couple tire marks and things. I'm not sure if I even keep those. I might get rid of them afterwards because it's like, I get it's supposed to be like tire wear, but it feels to me like tire skids, which not quite what you expect there. Now I'm actually adding some of the vanilla asphalt decals to cover up, and I've noticed these ones float above the paint decals. So it's trying to make them look a little more worn, a little more driven over. Looking for signs out front, and can't really find anything. I decide I've actually got some solar panels, so I figure, you know what, maybe these places are like in the process of gentrifying, in the process of becoming like a little more upscale. Like it's time to upgrade. And now I've begun to work on what is actually the Williamsburg or like the Western Queens waterfront. So I'm looking around at these, and they have a ton of kind of pedestal residential skyscrapers. So I've grabbed some of the modern Russian architecture, which is just kind of basically modernist architecture, and I'm trying to use it and clip all these buildings together to hopefully create. There's a poster there I don't really like. I'm like, oh god, some real stuff. I mean, it's already out of date too, so like, man, I wish I wouldn't waste texture space on that. But anyway, I noticed a lot of those buildings are actually like pedestal skyscrapers, which means they have like a 3 or 4, even 5-story base out in front, and then in that, I'd imagine like things like the lobby, probably in these luxury developments, the gym, like a pool, all those sorts of things would be in this lower base, and probably some people's apartment. So I've gone a little taller here. But then above that, they have the rest of the tower. So this actual little development doesn't end up staying. I think that building's just a little too massive for everything else. You'll see I'm pulling in some stuff that's eventually going to be part of the Gramercy Skyline at some point. And I really want the Roebling Waterfront here to look really secondary. Yeah, that's from Lower Manhattan. Actually, I think I might be a little too tall for downtown Gramercy. But I'm starting to kind of pull out stuff and compare it, and I think that orange tower in particular is just a little too massive. So that one actually comes out, and I replace it with something else. But for right now, I'm going through and really trying to find good buildings to serve as that pedestal. It's really tricky. This is actually, I think, a different clip even. I'm trying to find other stuff. So I end up settling on a lot of Boldy Building's offices, which I think work pretty well. They don't match perfectly, but they get close, which is fine. So yeah, this is actually the beginning of what turns out to be the final thing. I decided to kind of abandon the single tall structure and go for like a big winding building, because I feel like that sort of development I see a lot on these new areas. They're trying to get everybody to have a lot of light. They're trying to get everybody in these big old like former industrial blocks. There's really a big kind of focus on getting a ton of light in there. I used this new Woodlog Architects building, or at least it was new when I made this. Having trouble covering up the parking spots. Of course, I hate all these parking spots and these different things. They're super annoying. I really wish I'd just like get the ability to plot my own. But anyway, kind of going now, and I think this is when I realized, no, maybe not. But I'm looking around trying to figure out, like, that's filled the block. And now, of course, another staple right now of that waterfront area in New York is that it's constantly under construction. So I'm going through and adding some construction sites. And by that, I mean, just for now at least, just painting these areas brown. Because I don't really like showing stuff like that on videos. It hasn't been done yet. They're still just brown as I record this. But you've seen construction sites being built. You've seen this sort of stuff, and it's going to be the same everywhere. So, I mean, I'm going to start copying and pasting things. There's going to be some recordings of Gramercy that you don't see that are actually, I've thought about live streaming them, which is really nice. But it's just like, I don't feel like I can do it any better than anybody else can. So I'm not going to waste your time by recording it and making you watch it. Anyway, these are some of the new modular buildings I think are really cool. I try them out here as like a way to combat the slope. But unfortunately, it just doesn't quite work. I still don't have a good solution for how to deal with slopes. So this is part of the reason why this, I think it's called like the shark fin building or something really cool. Goes away. And I think that block is going to become a construction site or going to become smaller stuff. Or honestly, I can't remember. You know what? That's right. So I level out some of these blocks and use these larger ones as slopes because I can break them up more easily. I can kind of change what actual area is higher and lower. And to me, that makes a little bit more sense here. As well, just kind of having the low area that was former like industrial docklands. So it would, of course, be at the same level as the water because nobody wants to lug all this cargo and things up high just to bring them back down at another time. So I'm going through with the Move It tool and adding some trying to make the slopes gentle enough, trying to kind of check my pillars and things. They're not great, but I want to go through and redo a lot of these pillars anyway, particularly after Network Skin is finally updated, because there are hopefully going to be a lot of things I want to do to these structures. And if the rumors are true, we're going to see some awesome stuff with the next Network Skins. Now I'm looking around as I'm trying to figure out, like, can I sneak this road underneath the bridge, underneath anything? I think I decide just like no. And then, of course, I realized, like, a ferry dock would be really nice. They're implementing these. I think this was just during the news in New York where they're adding a bunch of ferry terminals all over the place, which is super cool. And I figured out, you know what? Gramercy could use this on the waterfront as well. Like, I know that dock's going to be a super short walk across that small bridge to, like, quote-unquote downtown Gramercy. But, like, you never know. It could be really nice to connect with that ferry all the way around to Delancey Heights Park, to, of course, Delancey itself, and even across to what is, I guess, New Jersey here, in, like, Gramercy, quote-unquote lore, Gramercy fiction. That's New Jersey or some other mid-Atlantic sort of state separated by a river. Anyway, right here I am back planting some more residential towers kind of on these bases. Using these offices, they're not quite perfect. I really wish there'd be some stuff with, like, I don't want to say green roofs because that's the next DLC and it doesn't look amazing, but like activity things on the roof. So I've seen like a roof deck or some chairs and things out there. And now I realize that it would be nice to have some transit in this area. And I'm thinking that these sunken stations could be really cool. But I end up, I think, punting and actually going for something based off of the Hudson Yards train station here in New York, which is the one closest to where I work, which I think is pretty cool. But I'm using some features of the Metro Overhaul mod that I've never used before, particularly the station rotation and depth changing. So I'm placing it very low, inspired by Hudson Yards, and kind of tracking in another subway line right now. Yeah, just the 2 stops. But you can see there, Halsey is actually, you know what? I might have added 2 full subway lines. But I'm trying to add ones to be able to keep the subways kind of going along with streets as close as possible, because that's how it's run in real life, and you can go around some tight corners because of these. But adding some more subways, which I think is smart. You'll see in the cinematics, it definitely takes a lot of cars off the road, at least right now. But, I mean, with that said, right now my RCI is totally off, like, out of control. I really wish I could just, substitute in a fake business district downtown to try and really figure out my traffic patterns and things. but it doesn't really matter that much. I know what it's going to be like at the end. So I'm kind of arcing new subway lines and things. I like the idea right here of kind of this avenue with the silly monorail over the top. Is definitely a former like elevated line, now subway. Like it's a big transit corridor. So I'm trying to add something, and it's gonna be a little more built up. It's inspired by I think it's Fifth Avenue actually in Seattle, the one with the monorail above it. But also kind of inspired by some of the more main thoroughfares like Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn, which has I think 6 or 8 subway tracks below it, which is crazy. And it belonged to like multiple different companies in the past, so it's all wacky and there are no easy transfers. But I go through and kind of lazily, towards the end, stretch out the subway line. And then it comes time to hit play and watch the neighborhoods of Halsey and Roebling grow. And, of course, provide them with electricity, which they desperately need. So anyway, this kind of all comes in, and this is something I actually didn't finish until like today, and I'm still not thrilled by it. So I started in with manually pinning a whole lot of building levels to try to prevent them from growing up. I did find the historic district mod, which is really nice. I'm using that now, but unfortunately, I turned that on and activated it just a little late. I'm looking now, I'm actually going over to my secret little area where I have all the monuments and turning them off to try to slow down the buildings leveling up. Because I figured, it could be cool just like manually placing all my things and letting the game level up what needs to be leveled up kind of on its own. So as I do this, I realized that I am tremendously lacking medical, so I'm trying to find big buildings to clip medical facilities into and hide them, because, looking at New York, it's like, I guess maybe there's like a clinic on every block, but it's not like a unique looking clinic building. It's one on the first floor of just some other larger building. So I was kind of like appropriating that idea. So it's like, you'll have these clinics inside other buildings. Anyway, I'm kind of getting myself off task here. So I'm trying to naturally let the neighborhood grow up to the correct levels. Trying that out doesn't end up working great, particularly as after I turn off all those other services, everybody else in the city really starts complaining. But I place some parks, I place all sorts of other stuff. That park, which is just for vanilla parks, I do off camera in the episode, so you'll see it in the ending cinematics, and I'm super happy the way it turns out. It's based off of Maria Hernandez Park in Bushwick, which I walk through every day now. But it's really cool. You can see, actually, I just now noticed, and I'm just remembering that even during the cinematics, I completely forgot to convert Roads United to American versions. That's annoying. Oh well, I'll have to remember that next time. I've lost my little note sheet, which told me everything to do every time I restarted Gramercy. Just in the double moves and no episodes forever. But anyway, I'm going through and now pinning all these buildings, which is crazy. It's like, I'm like, nah, it'll be fine, it'll be easy. But I ended up finding the historical districts mod. So now I'm looking and trying to figure out if there'd be an easy way to turn all of these assets into just like level 1 growables. So I'm looking at just like being able to grow them all as normal, or like figuring out a way, because there's such a distinctive pattern in my eye, at least, to the way like buildings in Brooklyn are kind of shaped, because you've got the main avenues with the more commercial buildings with things on the ground floor are like almost everywhere you go in Brooklyn. They're like 3 to 5 stories all over the place, if not higher or taller. And then like the second you get away from these main streets, you drop down right away into like 2 and 3 story walk-ups, or even like 2-story houses, like wall-to-wall townhouses almost, and of course the brownstones and everything too. But I'm trying to really emulate that shape, that kind of wave pattern, because I feel like that's just so kind of iconic. It really works for me. I've spent some time up on some friends' roofs lately, and just been like, yeah, I knew it. I could recognize that, and you can see it in Google Maps too. So as I kind of go through and continue pinning these, it ends up kind of all for naught as my kind of random thing. So during this time, I actually was live streaming for part of this pinning thing, and I have been playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons lately with friends. Whatever. It's a ton of fun, but I did all this based on a dice rolling method. I got a set of dice, and was rolling a 4-sided dice and adding 1 if it was near a big avenue, or adding 1 if it was on the same block as a school or near a park, and subtracting 1 if it was near like bad stuff like the highway. So I used dice rolls to try and sort the neighborhoods out so they wouldn't look all totally the same, because I'm just like, everything on a main road is level 3 and everything off a main road is level 1. So now I actually go, and this was an idea that I thought I had and I thought was going to be really good, and then turned out bad, because I'm like, you know what, now I have enough blocks that I can just start copying and pasting. Oop, never mind. This is what I get for recording such a long time ago. I decide, you know what, it's time for a freeway exit, which is probably about right. So of course this highway is inspired by the BQE, the Brooklyn Queens Expressway, which I hate driving it. I hate driving on it. I hate everything about it. But I think it's really interesting how it deals with exit ramps and things like that, where you will be honestly hard-pressed to find like a symmetrical 4-way interchange or intersection, or a way that you can get on the highway and off the highway at the same place in all directions, from all directions, whatever. Just because it was kind of rammed through the city by Robert Moses, and while you could definitely destroy a lot of neighborhoods, you can't destroy them all. So I'm going through and trying to like make these unusual exit ramps and things. Anyway, this is from my recording today. All right, so now you're going to get some more accurate commentary. So I spent a lot of today working on the Roebling Waterfront and trying to get that mix of industrial and like upscale condo kind of working right. So this block is more industrial, and actually I found really cool, and I think it's the Queens Waterfront, it might be Brooklyn, but I found a power plant actually right on the waterfront that looks exactly like this combined cycle power plant in game, and immediately I just like distracted me from everything that I was doing. I'm like, I need to make this. It's such a weird thing to have right on the waterfront, but it looks right. It's got like that short round stack, and so I kind of do a more one-to-one recreation than normal, I guess. I say that I'm just like thinking about the heavy amounts of inspiration I've taken from other things in the past, and it's probably about right. But what was weird about this is it really felt like something that they just built and then started working and forgot about, because the whole thing in real life was like fenced off. There's a ton of vegetation around it. It's right on the waterfront as well, but there's like no dock or anything. So I'm using some rock decals and trying to get rocks kind of going and feeling right, because I don't want the raw seawall is there in real life, but I was thinking it looked too much like the Navy Yards, just having seawall that goes straight down. So I really wanted to kind of make it look a little separate from that area, because it's right off the end of the quay that comes all the way from the Navy Yard area. So now I'm going and kind of trying to recreate the vegetation around this place in real life as accurately as I can. Throw some truck trailers in there, throw some different things. Notice there's a weird glitch where stuff is floating, presumably because I'm too close to a quay, and try to figure out how to deal with that. Throw in some pipes, trying to add a little more detail, just adding some more uniqueness, just for the heck of it. But I'm going through, grabbing my stain decals, my very best friends in this game, and I actually used the dirt decals here, which I never thought I'd use here in Gramercy, at least in the city proper. Then I realized, like, you know what, maybe I should add some more like electricity-looking sort of stuff. So I grabbed the substation, which really nicely, the combined cycle power plant is like a stripe down the middle of a block, and the substation is 2 stripes on the side. So I think it fits really well. It's really cool looking. It'd be nice to continue some power lines, but I tried that off camera and it just doesn't look quite right. Going through now, and I remember I had this pier asset, and while it's definitely there's nothing like this really in Brooklyn, I just really like these kind of older piers. So I decided to place a couple. They fit right in the block, and then I start changing it up and thinking like, man, if I could add more and just like make that a seamless thing. This is a little inspired by San Francisco, I guess, just that sort of area along the waterfront there and all the wharfs, or I guess they're piers, but near Fisherman's Wharf and things like that. But I think it looks really cool. It's like they're advertised as a flea market, which, man, I know those happen right on the Williamsburg waterfront there. So you know what? I'm calling that one. That one's good. That's staying. So now I go, and I've actually replaced those 2 towers with 2 that match a little bit better to each other in that luxury housing development. And now I'm trying to figure out what to do at this weird transitionary spot. And we're kind of getting closer to the end of time. I think there's only like 4 or 5 minutes. But I'm looking at the real one, and it uses a ton of little rocks and like I don't want to say gravel, because it's not quite that fine, but it's like a rocky sort of beach park almost. And I'm really trying to just use vanilla parks, because I know even though they suck, it's really nice just having everything pre-made. And I've found lately, just in other projects, is weirdly for my work, I'm like a professional city skylines builder. That's at least part of my job. And I found that some of these, like with enough custom trees and things, you can get some of the vanilla parks looking good, and they carry the right behaviors too. So they've got all the right people generating spots and whatever you need. But that doesn't work, unfortunately, here. So I'm going through and adding some benches just on a little loop of path. This is supposed to be one of these like newer sort of parks that they just kind of crammed into a small area, but designed to keep looking and feeling wild. So I plan to actually find that the meadow grass fits this area pretty close to perfect. So I add a little bit of other grass, and it's supposed to be like real wild kind of meadowy sort of area, like just with the path. And it's kind of weird for me having the substation so close, but it's kind of like that in real life, and it's not that like far off from some cool stuff. And I figured like it would be a neat park to just have like coming up right next to a big electricity generation facility. It might not be the most peaceful, I guess, but anything like there's gonna be times where it doesn't make a lot of noise. So I'm going through now and wrapping around with these walls. I wish there was a way to get them curved better, but we'll see. Because just like don't walk on the electricity area. Do not step on grass. So anyway, now I'm going through here, and this last little corner, of course, like I can't believe that I left a transitionary space after finishing my transition space. But that actually finishes this area, and this is actually weirdly one of the things I'm like happiest with in the city. That like couple blocks there, I'm just like super pumped with the way that turned out. It looks so nice, and all the new grasses and things. Now I'm going back and doing another sort of one-to-one recreation. It's sort of a almost construction site looking, almost like empty lot looking sort of place. So I go through dirt decals just because my terrain themes are all screwy at the moment. You'll notice that some things are different and not quite right, and trying to actually finish everything up and make like a dedicated Gramercy theme that I can release to you guys too. But there's a whole bunch of like weird stuff going on theme-wise and switching back and forth between different things. So trying to get everything sorted and going heavy on decals rather than using more of the theme stuff. But this is based off of some sort of empty lot / construction site. If I had to guess, or if I had to make up a story for what it is in Gramercy, it's a former factory, and the guy tore it down expecting some huge windfall for a luxury apartment development. And he's just like sitting there, and he won't take any offers unless they're like $30 million, which of course nobody's going to pay for. So anyway, I'm now going and doing another little warehouse sort of block in this area. Placing Rico stuff, deleting it all. Trying to fit things in a sort of interesting kind of way before paving it all over with concrete. I may actually go back through and try this with asphalt, but I don't quite know. I really like the concrete and the stuff that I have, the concrete texture I have actually. This is final. I'm using the theme replacer mod or whatever to get it working. This is me. This will tell you how long it's been since I've seriously played this. I've never like paged through those smokestacks, which are by now like a month or two old. So it took a little time to look through all the cool options there. But anyway, so this concrete's final, which I really like. It's a modified version of the Sinew concrete. But I need to figure out, I think this lot itself isn't quite level, which means plumbable asphalt won't be great. But I mean, I can use the decals, I can try to come up with something. But anyway, so I'm going through and, weirdly, I guess this episode's kind of ending like it started. We only have a couple more minutes left in the time lapse. I guess I was a little off about my prediction earlier. I guess I really should have just looked at the thing that I had. I literally have a timer sitting there. But anyway, as I continue, we get even more stains, even more decals and things. I love those big concrete tiles. I think it makes it look like they've ripped it all up and paved new. Tried to not add too many, but at the same time, being totally uninspired to want to change anything or do anything else. Drag some fences, which of course always helps finish off a little neighborhood. neighborhood, a little industrial area or anything like that. And then, of course, a handful of shipping containers and some vans. I was looking, this takes heavy inspiration from a block near the waterfront in Williamsburg. Actually, you know what? No, I think this one's technically Greenpoint, but hey, a real estate person, like a broker, will try to sell that neighborhood to you as Williamsburg. We're up now, and I'm trying to figure out ways to add some grass and not make it look bad. Patching some cracks there. Well, I guess making some cracks and then patching them. And then that's, I think, about it. Try to figure out like how this. Oh, that's right. I completely forgot. So, there's a cut there to when it's done. I actually went and quit the game and restarted and found some more apartments. I think these are by King Leno. I'm just looking for some like low-rise modern apartments that could be here. And I figure I clipped two together, they're each C-shaped, so I made like an S shape, which I think was pretty cool. Now I'm fooling around trying to figure out a way to like make the entrance more interesting, because the other area that would be the entrance, I guess, I turned into a basketball court, because this is when I first started thinking, man, it'd be nice to have things with more rooftop amenities, like you see in New York. But I realized, like, you know what, we can use this C and have like a ground level basketball court that people could have apartments that look out onto. And enjoy themselves, I guess, play some basketball. So I assume that would open up off like the gym or something. So I go through and I'm adding some curbs, I'm adding some like different props and things. One thing I really like about this basketball court, I think I've said it before, is it's New York City colors, the blue and orange. So it's really nice. Anyway, that's just about gonna do it for me. So cinematics is gonna be starting soon. I'm really happy. As I recorded this, I actually forgot, and the cinematics transitioned in the night. But we're like right at the point now where I think that there are certain vistas over Gramercy that look complete, and I'm really happy with them. So anyway, that's about it. Please enjoy the cinematics and things. They're probably going to start right about now. And I hope to have more videos for you guys soon. I've got some really exciting stuff kind of in the works, both in terms of mods and videos. And of course, exciting stuff for Gramercy means regular episodes. So anyway, that's about it. Please subscribe if you want to see some more stuff. I'd really appreciate a like and everything. But that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.